Oh my goodness.
Looks like we're live. Welcome everybody to a tutorial game, which we don't know how quick this will go, but we'll see, of Victory Games Vietnam 1965 to 1975. This is, of course, the Vassal module. We are using a specific version of the Vassal module, which is, I forget, it's something F now. Let me check that.
43F. Yeah, 43F.
43F as in Foxtrot. And apparently this is the one to use. So Pat is an old hand. Hi Pat, how's it going?
I'm going good. How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing good. So Pat is an old hand at this game, so he will be walking us through this very short one-turn scenario.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's a very It's funny. We were just talking before the stream. I think the best way, like, if you walk into this game, you're like, I have not played it. You haven't. I've read the rules, have not played it. I think if you're playing this scenario, like Gary, as you guys will see on the screen, he's playing the NLF. The US. The game calls it Free World Allies, and I think that's the best way to start out. And the funny thing is, if you have somebody who wants to jump right into the campaign game, and that's their thing, I think the more experienced player should play the US. The game's more forgiving in the campaign of that. It's a very good game. And this scenario we're going to do, it's intro. It gets into how to do operations, how to play the operational phase in the game. It does not get into anything having to do any permutations. It doesn't teach you any permutations that would parlay to the campaign game. It's just a very basic how to start doing this.
Okay.
Oh, lead magnet. Hey,
welcome.
Good
Thanks
day
for
to you.
coming by.
Okay, so I guess without any further ado, so let's examine what's on the board. There ain't a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you see where we are, we're kind of in the southern part of First Corps in South Vietnam, and Gary there in Chu Lai has, if you hover over it, Gary, he has 2 Marine battalions from the 3rd Marine Regiment, 3rd Marine Division. Okay. And there's a 155 battalion also in Chu Lai. And if we just look at the combat values on those, it's actually the 2nd of the 4th Marine Regiment and the 3rd of the 3rd, whatever. So if we examine the combat values on these things, you'll see that the US, there's 3 numbers, 308, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first number is the ground combat value.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The little middle number would be a firepower rating if there was one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we see the infantry battalions here have none. And then the last number is movement. And so you see the infantry battalions have 308, and that 2nd of the 12th 155 battalion has a 6 movement. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. There's a cruiser that can only be in all C hexes. And that means a hex, obviously, with just C, no land. Okay. And so, like, it couldn't be here.
Okay.
It can only be, there. And it's got a fire value of 6, just like that artillery we saw. And, the graphics on this were old, Victory Games stuff. So it was about trying to make it look as clear as possible to the player.
Yeah.
So it had those 2 dots mean it can shoot over 2 intervening hexes as its range. Oh. So, right. So this for here, it could shoot 1, 2, and that would be the maximum range of it. Okay. So that's what the 2 dots mean. And then we see Gary also has just south of what to you guys looks like 2 counters that are blue with a star on it, which is the hidden movement. The Viet, specifically the Viet Cong counters in this game, they're hidden information. So the flip side, you don't know what it is. It's just a thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we know from the scenario setup that I have a regiment and I have a political section, which is kind of a dummy in the game. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in setup, I could set them up in one of 2 hexes, and I've chosen to set them up in that hex, both of them. whatever I've got. And then south of that is you hover over, we see that Gary has the headquarters for the 7th Marine Regiment of the 1st Marine Division, which is an 086, okay? And the 3rd Battalion of the 7th Marine Regiment of the 1st Division, which is, again, a 308. Now, go and hover over that top stack that you got there, Gary, the one to the north. And you notice it's kind of the same thing. We just looked at the cruiser. That 155 battery has 1 dot, so it can shoot over 1 hex as its range, max range. Okay, that headquarters has basically it's fire support weapons, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's got a range of adjacent.
Okay, because there's no dots.
Because there's no dot, right? The other number to be aware of on all these counters is you see those infantry units have a +3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is their pursuit value. And we'll get into that as the game moves on. So that's pretty much that. The other thing we want to look at, if we go way over to the far right, we want to go up and look at the general record track.
Far right.
Far left, excuse me.
Oh,
far left. I need to be slapped by Arlie Ermy to remember my left and my right. Okay. So if we go to the general record track, so if we look at 4 and you just hover over it, you can see everything there, Gary.
Uh-huh.
You've got 4 replacement points. I've got 4 replacement points. Okay. You've got 4 air points.
Mm-hmm.
And that total is you've got 4 in a total, and that number will go down can go down in increments, as we'll see as we play this, as you'll see. And the way these things work is all these things can be moved, right? Boom, 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 boom. I'm moving them, right? That air thing, it's not it should have a control shift function. It doesn't here for some reason. In most games it does, because you know what I mean? You hit shift and then you move it, because usually that total won't go down.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like because it's for a long turn and you're just using those points, but that's your maximum.
Okay.
You know? Okay. And then this air counter, which is orange in the vassal module, that's to track what you've assigned to a given operation.
Okay.
So if you did an op and you assigned 2, you would move them like this.
Okay.
You follow me? So you've gone down from your total because you've assigned 2, which you have assigned to the op, which you'll have available each round in the operation.
Right. But you're moving the available token rather than the total token.
Right.
Okay.
So let me move that. No, that guy back. Yep. Everybody's where they're supposed to be. Now, if we look in the 1 column, we see the same thing kind of duplicated like that air.
Mm-hmm.
There's a transport points and a transport total.
Mm-hmm.
And those work in the same way. Those are for you can use to air mobilize units. Okay. And it's kind of the same concept where that if you used one, that would go there, and that's like your maximum total. You know, that blue marker. But okay. So in any case, wonderful. That's the general record track. And you know, everything we need to like look at like combat results and everything like that is kind of over to the left here, and we'll get to it when we get to it, as well as like terrain chart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple scenario. We're not going to dig into a lot of stuff in the game. So as we begin, the victory conditions for this scenario are pretty simple. The game lasts 1 operational turn. Okay. And let's see, one operations phase, I should say. And the victory conditions, I'll just read them to everybody right here. There's a long example of playthrough in the rule book, but what it comes down to at the end of the day is the U.S. player, Gary, wins. I have a regiment. One of my units is a regiment. If I disperse it, if I break it down, which means it's destroyed or it leaves the play area, but no U units are destroyed, you win. The NLF player wins if you don't win. Okay. And the play area, let's see what they refer to here. Quang Nai, so this province, Quang Nai that we see here is the play area. Okay. You are technically in the play area because you're on the border.
Okay.
Right? That hex is on the border. The other special rules for this scenario are The NLF player may not conduct strategic movement. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, all my VC units for all purposes, movement, alert, reaction, retreat, pursuit, which we'll talk about, all those things as we come across them, are reduced by 2. Okay. So the VC used to the slow action of the ARVN were unprepared for the speed and flexibility demonstrated by the Marines in this operation. You may not declare free fire zones. The U.S. player may not. And that's it.
Okay.
So we go to the operations phase. And here we go. Operations phase. So we start with the designation segment.
Mm-hmm.
So the NLF player decides whether he or the U.S. player will conduct an operation.
Okay.
The indicated phasing player then notes the type of op he will conduct, which units will participate in its first round, and chooses its target hex. Okay? So, and then their break off flow charty thing, what type of op are you doing, and you look at different stuff. All right. So, but the first thing is, and it's a kind of key to the game, is that's how the operations phase works. The NLF player, I always say, like, he's calling the tune, like, you know what I mean, at the square dance. He can do every operations phase. He could go conceivably 20 times. You know what I mean? In bigger games before the U.S. player can go. He determines who has the initiative. Well, I am most certainly taking the initiative here. I don't like where I'm at. You've kind of got me squeezed. So I am going to activate both these units for a search and destroy operation. And I am targeting no hex. You target a hex with, what do you call it? In the game, normally, as you'll see when you try to kill me, you target a hex and you declare a target hex. Okay? But if you declare no target hex, what you're basically doing is saying you're not going to attack anything. Okay, so you're just moving.
Okay.
So old hands, like when we used to play the game and someone was doing an op like that, we'd say, I am doing a search and destroy targeting Hanoi. Or you follow what I'm saying? There's no target here. So I have 2 units, and you would know if you looked at the force pool, right? For the units we were selecting, they both have 6 movement points because it's a regiment and a political section, and those have 6 movement points. If we were playing a more complex scenario, there's variability to the movement points and the combat values of like NLF battalions specifically. But these guys are pretty much set piece. And I have -2 movement points. So what I am going to do is move here for 2. Okay? So if we go up to the movement cost, I'm moving into cultivated hex from a grassland hex. That costs 1 movement for foot units, specifically. This is a foot unit. So...
Okay, that's... Okay, gotcha.
And I am not done moving. So that's 2. Why did it cost me 2? Because you have a ZOC. Your zone of control adds 1. Up. Before we do this, I screwed up. So... at the very beginning of the operations phase, because we're doing, let's see, game turn. It looks like we don't have. Let me look at the scenario again. Like, we're not doing any of the special operations stuff. So let me just double check on that to make sure you can't put people on patrol and whatnot.
Blue Tweezers, Purple Norseman, and Pete Madoff, thanks for coming by.
It begins and ends with the first turn of summer.
Okay.
It is 1 turn long. So because it begins with the first turn of summer, I was wrong. We absolutely get to, if you look at the sequence of play there, right? So it's the first turn of summer. So the game turn, sequence outline, game turn. It says game turn, conduct twice a season, where it says sequence outline, whatever. So we start with the support phase. All right.
Okay.
So you indicate all available support on your record sheet, which has been done. Great. Okay. Special operations phase. You may choose to place any units you have on holding or patrol operations. Then I made you the same. Now, if you go on patrol, you're like, Pat, what is that going to do? Right?
Right.
Okay. If you go on patrol, so one of the cool things about this module, what I love about it is the game itself can be somewhat marker intensive. Everything here's a right click function. So I'm going to put this unit here in to the south of my 2VC, your infantry unit on patrol. Isn't that cool? So we know the guy's on patrol, right? And it kind of highlights it. What that does is it makes your Zoc more difficult.
Okay.
So it would cost me 2 movement points to move away from you. So it would cost me 3 movement points to go there, for instance, rather than 2 before.
Okay.
You know, just right. Okay. So, however, that guy can't do any more operations this turn.
Okay.
All right. That's it. That's his operation for that whole turn. Okay. Hold. Let's put that guy on hold. Because you see there's an option. It says toggle hold patrol ops complete. So let's go on hold. Hold means he can't do anything and he has no Zoc, but it doubles his strength.
Okay.
So so you're in defensive mode, right? You can't do anything. But you're doubled. All right, so that's that guy. Let's talk a little permutation, which has caused much consternation, and I'll give you the rules interpretation we're playing with, right? This is one of those games like so many, right? It was put out in like 84. So I always say enough people have had the time to read it a billion times where you can find loopholes if you want to in certain little things. You dig me? Right? Okay. So if you put this guy on hold, an arty unit, he can't fire. Okay, but it doubles his artillery value for defensive purposes. You dig me?
Okay.
That's the interpretation we're playing with. There's some people out there who will say, "Oh no, through parsing the words that he can't fire offensively, but he can fire at a distance, and it's doubled." Right. Okay. Right. The whole hold function is about you know what I mean? You're defending up. You know what I mean? You're preparing this area against possible attack and sacrificing your ability to do anything operationally later. Okay? You know, conduct active operations. So that's hold. So those are your 2 options right now for any of the units you have. You can put guys on patrol or you can put guys on hold.
Okay. So this might be stupid, but let's put the guy that you had marked. So this 3rd Battalion of the 1st Marines, we'll put him on patrol.
Okay.
And because it seems to me that what I would like to do is pin you down.
Yes.
I'm going to take one of these units from the northern stack and put him on patrol as well.
Okay. All right. That's cool. So you got 2 guys on patrol. So that's cool. And I am not putting anybody on hold or patrol. Okay. Now we move past that. Now you at this time in the turn, since we're doing the first turn of summer, right? You could do strategic movement. You may conduct security operations and employ strategic and naval movement. Now here's I'm going to quickly describe strategic movement for the U.S. and the NLF, which I can't do. Okay. And then quickly describe a security operation to everybody. A strategic movement for the U.S. only would be Gary saying, I can't grab your units because I'm the wrong player, but that's fine. It would be him. You say, I'm assigning this unit. So let's say the 2 guys, because the 2 guys that are on patrol can't be assigned. So you go to 1 stack. And it can only be units from a stack. It can't be units from multiple stacks. You got me?
Okay.
So in the game, you go to 1 stack. So the place to do it would be like Chulai.
Okay.
And you would say, I am doing a security operation with these 2 units that are there.
Okay.
Okay. The artillery unit and the infantry unit. And they can move along any road hex with unlimited movement. And they would be able to do combat if there was an NLF unit on a road that they ran across. That is not the case here.
Okay.
Okay. If you did that, then your op's complete for the rest of the turn. You know what I'm saying? So you don't want to do that. All right,
Okay.
but that's basically security operation. It's a road clearing thing. U.S. strategic movement works very similarly. So if you did a strategic movement with, I'm going to use the cruiser as an example, right? Because I can move it. Let's pretend it's that infantry unit.
Right.
All right. You could move him along a road with unlimited movement cost. So he would go la-di-da and he'd come here. Then you would have to start spending movement points because you'd be moving through my Zoc, right?
Okay.
We don't know what I got there, but we know I got a Zoc, okay? So you would, if you were in Chulai, you go la-di-da, no cost, and then it'd be one to exit. 1, 2, 3, and you'd have 5 movement points left. And then you could move, let's pretend all the roads were free all the way to Saigon. You could go to Saigon.
Okay.
All right. So that's strategic movement in the game. When you do that, though, your op's complete, right? You can't do anything for the rest of, the whole turn. So those functions, it shows how very powerful, you know what I mean, U.S. Strategic movement is in this game.
Okay.
It's very, very powerful. You could also do naval movement if you wanted. So the guy at Chulai is at a port. Okay? So to do naval movement, you don't even have to start at a port. So I'm going to pretend once again that cruiser is the guy at Chulai, okay?
Okay.
Let's put him here. He could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the port. Okay, so move up to your maximum movement allowance, or you could air mobilize, which we'll get to later when you do it, which would let you move a greater distance. You go to a port and you can move to any other port on the map. Okay. So you could move there, you could go to Saigon, you could go to Canton, way in the south. You could get, anywhere. You could also do, triple check this. I believe you can move to a beachhex, okay, as well. Now, the game does not allow for true, like in World War, other games, like a true amphibious assault, right? So if my guys were in a beachhex, you couldn't land there, but you could just land here.
Okay.
Is your naval movement, okay? So anyway, those are your options now, but you don't want to do that. You would have, the game would end, right? If you did strategic move or naval movement or something, and you did not break me down, and it's over. I won. Okay, so you don't want to do any of those things. So now we move past that beginning part of a turn. And sorry, I've got a PDF copy of the rules, which I sent you too, Gary, but as you know, it's not bookmarked.
Yeah, it's not bookmarked. It is a straight scan.
Straight scan that's out there. And hopefully maybe someday somebody will take OCR software and actually just really do a scan of this thing. Okay. So now we go to the operations phase, number 4, and we do that designation segment. So notice that the game also gives, talking about that strategic movement, the security ops, right? Notice it's only the U.S. player who can do all that stuff, right? So the game gives the U.S. player like a strategic advantage every turn, right? You can do that before the NLF do anything, right? Strategic, all that. Once we get into the operations segment, where we are now, I could also do strategic movement. I can't do it in this scenario. And you could do it with your guys' operations. It's an operation like any other.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so this is a separate type of strategic movement then.
Right. It's a set-aside time and place where only the U.S. player can do that shit if he so desires. Right? But then he could also do that stuff later in the operations phase. What it does is, since the NLF player calls the tune in terms of initiative, right? It gives the U.S. player a chance to have... The U.S. has strategic initiative in this war. You follow me? I'm going to do strategic and naval movement. I'm going to do some security operations against you on the roads and stuff, right? And the NLF can't react to that, but it's because of all the resources available, to the U.S. to be able to do these things, right? But once we get to the operations phase, well, the NLF player, the guerrilla, he's the guy who has the initiative, right? Okay. So, and here we are, and I've got the initiative. So what I'm going to do is... And I actually think your patrol there to the south was not such a bad idea, my friend. So I'm going to do exactly what I said. I'm going to activate those 2 guys for an operation. Okay? And they are going to go... And I'm going to target Hanoi, which means I'm not attacking you. I'm just basically trying to move.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to think about this because you went on patrol in the south. And I think that what I am going to do is move them both here.
Okay.
And they are both now ops complete.
Now that means that they are finished for the turn.
For this whole, for the phase. As you'll see, it's not just this operation, for the turn. Okay? For the turn. So I moved there. That cost me 1 and then 2 because I'm leaving a patrol Zoc. So that's 3 movement points.
Okay.
Boom. I've got 6. I'm at -1, and to leave another hex would, you know what I mean, would cost me 5 to go here.
Okay.
So I would exceed my allowance. Now, having ended my move there, you now can get a reaction move with either one of those units.
Okay.
Now the way reaction moves work is this: if the other guy ends his movement in an operation next to your units, you can do a reaction move. Doesn't cost an operation. Won't make you ops complete. Here's what will happen. If the guy on patrol does it, you can move up to your full movement allowance.
Mm-hmm.
If he does that, he will no longer be on patrol. He will just be ops complete, specifically for guys who are on patrol. Okay?
Okay.
Your other guy, if he moves, he will still be available to conduct operations.
Okay, so, but because you're ops complete now, it doesn't seem like I much care that I would no longer be on patrol. Is there a role to do the reaction move, or you could just do it?
Here's the conundrum for you. That guy won't be able to attack anyway.
Right.
Right? Because he's ops complete.
Right.
But being on patrol and that, he's the only one pinning me there with an extra movement point cost.
Okay.
As you come, because you're inevitably going to do a search and destroy operation.
Right.
I'm going to try to alert away. And I very well may be able to. That will cost extra movement point. You know what I mean?
Okay.
The patrol costs more movement points than having you adjacent to me in a Zoc.
Okay. So there is value in keeping the patrol Zoc on you for moving forward here.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Because
so I guess
because I am now ops complete, so I can't have the initiative, right? I can't keep moving, and take the initiative from you. So now I have to defer to you, the U.S. player, and say you may conduct an operation.
Okay. All right. So my options appear to be a search and destroy, a clear and secure, or a security operation, which we passed.
Which you could still do, because I'm on the road. So you could just activate those 2 guys and say, I'm doing a security op. And assign support and do a security operation.
Well, let's try that. Why not? Okay. So the only guy that is available so when we say assign support, we mean either the HQ support or the artillery support or the air support. So
here's what you do. Okay. First thing you do is you go to this stack. It's interesting that we're doing a security operation here, but that's cool. So what you do is in the game, it's pretty cool. So activate the 3rd of the 3rd Marines. There's an activate for like that, active, right? Okay. See how it says active? And you want to activate this artillery unit because he can go along.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And then you can assign support to the security operation. Okay. And remember, once you finish this, your ops complete. Okay.
Right.
So there will be no more playing. So there's nothing to save for. So I would assign all your air points.
Okay, sure. I think there was 4 available.
Right. So according to Hoyle, right? Everybody, moving markers in a game. Do you really do that? So that goes to
Right.
0, right?
Right.
And that goes up now to 4. Okay. So you've got 4 air points, and you can assign the cruiser.
Okay, might as well. It's the right range.
Right.
The range is correct.
Right. You can't assign the 7th Marine Regiment headquarters because it's in a different stack.
Okay.
Okay. So they're not available to be used right now.
Okay.
All right. So now you move along a road.
All right. So we're going to move toward you.
That's 1.
Okay.
That's 1. Right. And I don't get an alert movement here because it's a security operation. You haven't ended your, there's no target hex in a security operation, as you'll see.
Okay.
For your next move, you're going to move into my hex.
Okay.
Okay. So that is going to cost you an extra 1.
Okay.
So for leaving a Zoc.
Okay. So it sounds like we spent 3 movement points.
Right. You have spent, no, you've spent 1. Because remember, security operation is just like that strategic movement. That first thing was free, right?
Okay.
But you're stuck on a road. You can't move off roads. Okay?
Okay.
So you are now in this hex, and you're going to attack me in this round, okay? For a security operation. So in fact, let's pull it up and let's go to the flow chart for the security operation. There is one. Security op. Designated single stack on a road.
Okay.
You can't declare free fire, but you declared support, right?
Right.
You designated the stack. Now we go to offensive interdiction. If you use that firepower, if you use 6 of it, what you have available, okay? And so let me pull out a marker and then I'll explain. Come here, markers. There you are, markers. There's no target hex because that's for search and destroy or clear and secure operations. So let's pull out interdiction. Okay? There's an interdiction marker.
Okay.
And I can flip it, increase, and decrease it. All right. So interdiction level 1. What the hell does that do? Well, you can use your firepower that you have assigned to this operation to make it more difficult for me to retreat.
Okay.
All right. So it costs. Let me interdict. So yeah, 3 support points. So any combination doesn't matter. It could be the artillery you have in the hex. You know what I mean? Your air points or the cruiser, right? Any combination thereof, you would normally spend 3 for 1, and you would spend 7 for 2.
Okay.
Okay. However, caveat. If there is no free fire zone, the U.S. pays double for all firepower effect. So it would cost you 6 for 1 or 14 for a 2. You follow me? All right. The second thing is a tip of advice because of the type of op you're doing. I'm probably going to be able to retreat. I am going to be able to retreat and not be on the road after 1 round of combat. Okay. And then you won't be able to attack me anymore. So interdicting me is pointless. Okay. But I just want to, I'm teaching you how to play.
Right.
So that's an option, right? So your best bet here is just to throw every bit of lead you have at me. And we do the security operation.
Okay.
All right.
So we're saying no to interdiction. All operating units withdrawn.
Right.
Which I presume is not happening here.
Right. Can't happen.
And then we have what looks like your reaction.
Let me see here.
I'm looking at the flow chart.
Is the stack an enemy occupied hex? Yes. Offensive interdiction. So you don't worry about reaction.
Okay.
So the way the flow chart works is like that. So we got there, right? Yes. I'm in it, right? If I wasn't in it, we check for reaction. Like the reaction move. So if I had a guy who was here.
Okay.
Right,
gotcha.
right. So that would mean basically it was the end of your movement. Okay. But we ain't doing that. So let me throw this guy back in here. So, all right. So then we go to, and the reason this flowchart is here is all about really, if you get down to it, the hidden information aspect.
Uh-huh.
All right. So offensive interdiction. Do you want to do any?
I'm gonna guess now no, based on the fact that it's would
Right.
cost a lot of the available points, like a almost all of the available points to do it. So I'm gonna say no.
Right. Then we go to defensive interdiction. All right. All right. I'm not doing any.
Okay.
Then where it says determine combat die roll modification.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's when I reveal my units.
Okay.
Which is no surprise because it's a very, so I've got a political section. So the political section dies.
Okay.
Just throw it over here. All right. All right. And we're going to do combat. And I've got as you see, the first regiment of the NLF,
Uh-huh.
the first independent regiment, fighting against you. So we add everything up. So you've got 4 air. You've got 6 cruiser fire because I'm just in cruiser range. And you've got 7 artillery.
Right.
All right. So that's 13, 17. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. We keep the fraction.
Okay.
All right. It is barely what you could bring in terms of combat support because you can only bring up to a maximum of 3 times your ground strength.
Okay.
In terms of firepower. Okay. So 9 would be the maximum. So you are at 11.5. That's your total number for odds. Okay.
Okay.
I am at 8.
Okay.
Okay. So now we will go to the combat chart. And because we're showing everybody, and there's a combat generator in this engine, but we'll get into it in a second. So the odds ratio is a straight up 1-to-1, which means 0.
Okay.
All right. Terrain is cultivated. No effect. It says RF. There's a defensive modifier for you if you were defending, not for me, for regional forces. So cultivated, there's no effect from terrain. And let's see. And so that's that. So what you're going to be doing is rolling an unmodified D10 here. Excuse me, a D6. Okay. D6. Okay. But we're going to do it this way. So I'm going to pull up the combat board and walk you through how to use the combat board because it's so cool in this module. Okay. Let me make it a little bigger and let me fit it to width.
Yeah, it's a little small.
Fit to width. Okay. So here's the way you work. The attacker's strength is your strength plus my artillery. Now, the NLF unfairly don't get this unless it's free fire. They're halved.
Okay.
Okay. So you are 3 plus my 2, which makes you 4 to 7.5. So I click that, and you see in the chat stream it says 4 to 7.5 attacker loss column. Okay.
Okay.
Let me hit the buttons, by the way, on this one. Yeah. All right. So then defender strength. I am 6 plus your 8.5. That's really good. So that's going to be 14.5. So we're right here. Okay.
Okay.
The combat odds are 1-to-1.
Okay.
Okay. And then we're in, you see where it shows, it looks like grassland and cultivated there, that first column. There's no modifier, terrain DRM 0. And because it's the first round, okay, there's no pursuit modification. And I'm going to hit yes at the end of this.
Okay.
You do have air involved.
Okay.
So I'm going to click that. You don't have any air mobile. And it's not a hot LZ, which means the U.S. is landing air mobile in a hex with the enemy.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And then I click round 1. And then I hit roll and resolve.
Okay.
Attacker loss 1. Okay. So we see what was rolled. You rolled a 2. And on a 2, if we now look at the actual combat chart, okay, and go across, so let's look at that combat results table because I want to explore for teaching everybody, right?
Okay.
So you see the very first thing next to a 2, there's a picture of a helicopter.
Right.
If there were air mobile involved, the U.S. player would have lost an air mobile point.
Okay.
Okay? Notice the next result is a 3. Okay? If there was air involved, the U.S. player would have lost an air point.
Okay.
However, you had no air mobile involved, so that does not matter.
Okay.
We look at... First thing we do is cross-reference that 2 against... Remember, you were on the 4-7-5, right?
Right.
Notice how it says 1/0, that's attacker, defender. So we cross-reference that there, okay? That's the one loss you took.
Okay.
Then we go to the 14, and the defender's to the right, and you see how it says 0.
Right.
Right? That's why I took no losses.
Okay.
And that's what happened.
Okay. So let's say that we rolled a 4 instead.
Right.
So on the 4 to 7.5. So we're basically taking both column results off whatever die roll result we had, right?
Right.
So had we rolled a 4, there'd be 1 attacker loss from the 4 to 7.5 column.
And then, 1 defender loss.
Right.
On the 14 to 21.5.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so we're taking the attacker loss from the attacker's column and the defender loss from the defender's column.
Right. Okay. One of the cool things about this, just like, I mean, there's so many. You know, I love this game. I could go on and on, right? But one of the cool things about the basic combat system, right, is that idea. Your casualties are the enemy's firepower and your ground profile.
Yeah. So you have all this frontage. Increases your ability to take casualties too.
Right. Now, in a security operation, there are no pursuits, okay? But if you look to the far right of all these columns, right, on that 2 roll, the pursuit roll is a 0.
Okay.
Bonus is a 0. And as you see, as you go up and down this chart, it can be negative or a positive number.
Right.
That is then added to, if we go back and look at like the units on the map, right? If it was a search and destroy and not a security op, right? Those numbers are added to that organic pursuit number that like our units have up there. So you notice my regiment, if I was attacking, I have a 0.
Right.
So if I was the attacker here, I would have no bonus to pursuit.
Okay.
You would have, even with that 0 roll, a +3 for that Marine unit. Because that's an organic number.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying?
Is that a flat DRM to subsequent combat rounds?
We'll get into that when it happens, because we're learning. I'll show you when it happens. But that's the thing to keep in mind, is that the combat result affects pursuit. You were doing a security op, all right? So the next thing, let's go back to that flow chart. And let me find my PDF. All right. So retreats. Yeah. I'm on a freaking retreat. Oh, so we need to apply that loss. You do not want to lose a unit.
Okay.
So you're going to take one of your replacement points and move it down to 3.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Gotcha.
Right.
That is a very SPI-like idea.
Right. Now, here's what would happen. If you took more losses than strength points in a single round, which we just did was a round.
Right.
That guy would be screwed. But if you looked at the chart, that rarely happens.
Okay.
You know, that combat chart.
Right.
You know, that would be a very, very difficult thing to have happen. Okay. So you take a loss there, and then I get to retreat. All right. So I've got 6, but I got -2, and it's going to cost me extra points. I believe an extra 1 to leave because it's enemy occupied. Okay. And I've got you on patrol. So that's an extra 2, because the Zoc, if this guy wasn't on patrol, it would cost me 1 because you're in the hex and 1 because it's your Zoc stuff of anybody who was okay. But you've got patrol, so it's going to cost me 3 to go there, and then 4 to go there. But actually, I'm actually going to stay here. Okay. And that ends things because you can't do any more security op because I'm not on a road.
Okay.
Well, the way it would work then, if in a real game you were doing a security op, So remember, you spent 1 point for Zoc.
Right.
This would that now cost you, like, to move to Chulai would cost you another one to escape that Zoc, and then you could like go to Saigon if you wanted, or
Okay.
keep popping units the way you just did.
Okay.
So security op obviously was not the way to go,
Well,
for the
clearly
U.S.
not.
in
Well, because
this
I
operation.
mean, well, a couple things here. First of all,
But I don't want to get heavily into the winning the Operation
right,
Starlite intro scenario, right?
right.
Okay.
Well, right, but
Right.
at the same time, the ramifications of those mechanics turn out to be important in terms of the options that are available. So, it was probably not a great idea to run it as a security op, but hey, literally first thing I did.
Right.
Also, probably not super bright to commit both of those Marine battalions to patrol. Probably would have been sufficient to commit one of them.
Right. So the big mistakes, quote unquote mistakes, I think you made in this scenario were just that. I wouldn't have put the guy in Chulai on patrol,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't have done a security op, but your instinct to basically put that guy to the south on patrol to make it more difficult for me to move away,
Mm-hmm.
which, as you'll see when we do something that's like a search and destroy, and there's a VC alert roll,
Mm-hmm.
specifically only for VC in the game, by the way. That's their bread and butter for getting away. Okay. So absolutely, I think putting that guy on patrol to the south was a good idea. Let's put it that
Mm-hmm.
way. So all right, so we're done. That's Operation Starlite
Okay.
completed. Moving at a snail's pace, completed one turn in 45 minutes. All right. So what do you want to do? You want to flip sides, or do you want to do this again as the U.S.?
Let's take a super quick break so I can hit the head, and
I will do the same.
And let's try it again. I'm happy to stick with these sides. I mean, the scenario should take, if you know what you're doing, the scenario should take 5 minutes. So even explaining as we go, we're in for about 45-minute territory. So let's just try it again, and then maybe we could switch sides.
Yeah.
It looks
Anybody listening, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask stuff.
This is instructional.
So I don't go on and on and on. Let's try to keep it to what we're covering right now. Or permutations. What I mean by that is not stuff like about the campaign game.
Right. Yeah, we can circle back to that if somebody has questions about more about additional features of the game than what we are covering in the scenarios.
Right.
Let's save those to the end.
But I know this. I can already tell he's enjoying himself. So we may be doing quite a bit of this as a learning game.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a pretty decent scenario selection in the game. This is literally the one turn, put the pieces down and move them once. Learning scenario. So yeah, let's see. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back, and we're going to try this again.
I will be back in 5 as well. Vorpal Bite. Before I go and take my little break, I'll tell you, even at this super slow expository, trying to teach people how to show people how to play the game's pace, I'm having a blast.
All right, so we're back. I'm going to put everybody back where they're supposed to be here. I have had a reasonably large amount of coffee this morning, so very well caffeinated. This fine weather looks nice anyway, day. this guy's started. I can't move him. I'll have to let Pat move those. It's all good. So, welcome, first of all, Crossing Obstacles Gaming, Vorpal Bite, and Daniel. Thanks for coming by. This is, of course... Oh, poop. I never sent out the tweets. So this is, of course, a game that has been around for a very long time. Looking up the actual release date. Which I think Pat's right. I think this is 84. Yeah, it is, in fact, a 1984 Nick Karp design. The physical game is pretty typical Victory Games production quality. It's 2 maps. We've got some pictures here. It's 2 maps which fit together in an L configuration. And Jose Arte, 2001. Hi, thanks for coming by. And Kabuki Kid. Counters are also pretty typical Victory Games counters. Pretty primitive counters, to be completely honest about it. And like many Victory Games titles, the counters are... the print on the counters is pretty small. Let's put it that way. So, but looking at... Yeah, let's look at the US ones. I'm having some kind of DNS problem. I think it's DNS. It's causing web pages to respond pretty sluggishly. Other internet functionality works fine. So we have been talking about this as a game we would eventually like to do. So, ID Jester, thanks for coming by. As a game that we want to do something with sooner or later for some time. So, it looks like we are able, in principle at least, to combine units or to have brigade-sized units floating around for the allied player, the allied side. It's got a decent number of pieces. It's a 3 counter sheet game, which is not a small game. I mean, depends who you ask. Everybody's got a different definition of what constitutes a big game versus what constitutes a small game. But I feel like a 3 counter sheet game is not a small game. The 3 full counter sheets of half-inch counters, anyway. Maybe it's not a monster, but I'm going to call this a monster because of the time commitment that it takes to play through the entire campaign. Not because it has 3 counter sheets necessarily. Lots of folks. I mean, this is still considered by many to be the definitive wargame treatment of the Vietnam War. Urbanite SPA monster games are kind of an odd duck if you think about it as a category because there's a lot of big games there. A lot of those games aren't that complicated, actually. Like War in Europe's not that complicated. Atlantic Wall's not that complicated. War Between the States actually is kind of complicated in places. Campaign for North Africa, of course, speaks for itself. War in the Pacific, fairly complicated. Highway to the Reich, not that complicated.
What, Victory Game stuff? I think Victory Game stuff is less, more user-friendly than SPI stuff.
Well, maybe, but there's a bigger pool of games to look at with SPI, like a much bigger pool.
Right.
I think Victory Games had a reputation, and I think it's earned, that their games tended to be more complicated. Definitely than a lot of the SPI stuff. I think a lot of SPI stuff is actually relatively simple. I mean, there's exceptions, obviously. But even if you don't count Campaign for North Africa, there are still exceptions. But I put the units back in their starting positions, by the way.
Okay, so let me hide.
But I can't touch yours, so.
Right. Hide. What I like about Victory Games to this day, okay, is basically that they didn't have a house style. Everything was designed for the game that they were making.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so let me do this.
Where'd the cruiser go?
End operation. Oh, it did some automatic stuff because I did. I'll explain some of the automatic functions to you later. So no, I don't want to activate for ops clear. I want to do that to that guy. And that to that guy. So instead of saying like, well, generally we like to do our CRTs like this, or generally we like to, let me get the...
Mike Curtis, thanks for stepping by.
We go to the force pull and grab you a cruiser. All right. Okay, so I can't. If you go to the window that has like the pictures of all the different unit counters, just go up in there, and grab a cruiser. All right. So what happens is in the game, if you hit end operation, right, it'll send the cruisers home.
Oh, okay.
So and it might have done that, and you didn't even need to grab it. I need to look at the
Where's
there's
home?
there's a little box on the map. Yeah, there it is. So if you look, see where it says Ho Chi Minh Trail Track? To the left, like just left of the edge of the playable map area. Underneath that, it says Laos Neutral. There's a Ranger holding box. And see where it says ship holding box, right?
Okay.
So that tells you, boom, you know, it really should have gone to assign, but I hit end turn, so it moved it to available.
Okay.
So whatever, right? So there's a lot of functionality like that in the game. You know, just built. I mean, I'm saying the vassal module that's built into it. So all right, so here we go. It's Kobayashi Maru time, you know, or Dr. McCoy. I thought you were dead, you know. So let's start again. So we go to the beginning, and you obviously don't want to do any special strategic movement.
Nah.
And you don't want to do
no reason to do that.
Right, any of that stuff. So now we get to the special operations phase where you can put guys on hold and patrol. Do you want to put anybody on hold or patrol?
So yeah, we'll do the same thing we did last time and take this guy in My Lai and put him on patrol, which is refreshingly Control P, which is fantastic.
Right.
Actually, it's not in My Lai, but
nearby.
Yeah.
Milai's on that Ba Long and Batangan Peninsula. This vassal module version, by the way, uses a the vassal module's obviously fantastic, and this game's community is very active in updating it and making things better, right? So just a friend of mine, actually, Rick Kirk, did small edits to the map where it just rationalized some of the roads to the way they really would work. Yeah, you know, historically, stuff that really has no effect on game, on gameplay or the campaign or anything like that. Okay, and he added little things like that, like My Lai, which isn't on the base game map. So these little locations, there's My Lai, stuff having to do with landing zone X-ray and the Ia Drang and just little stuff like that. Anyway, so all right, so you're doing that, and then we're done, and then we go to the operations phase. Okay, so I'm going to go first. And I am going to go, let's see, what am I going to do? I'm going to do a search and destroy targeting Hanoi. And that would cost me 4. And that would cost me 3. I think I would like to be free of you. So we are going to go here.
Okay.
We're going to activate, and then we're going to, so we activated for the operation moved,
Mm-hmm.
and then
And that costs you 2?
that cost me 3 movement point. So 1, 2, 3, but I can't go anywhere else. Well, let me see. I've got 4. Yeah, I can't go anywhere else because if I went here,
Mm-hmm.
that would cost me 5 because I'd have to leave your Zok.
Okay.
So that's that. We're done. Our move is now ended, and we have moved close to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now going to hit the. So you see that button where it says like there's a big button with 4 buttons that say target, this, that, end turn.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit end operation. So I activated those guys for an op, moved them, and I ended it, and it makes them ops complete.
Okay.
Okay. So now I ended my move there. So those guys in Chulai get a reaction move. They can move up to their full movement allowance.
Okay. So can they just move into your hex?
No, that's an attack.
Okay. So
you can only move into an enemy hex if you've got a target marker there, and the target marker is placed there when you've got like a search and destroy operation, okay, or like a security op, like we talked about. So this is reaction move.
So I don't see any value in a reaction move at this time.
Okay, the Marines opt to not do any reaction moves. Okay, so now I can't do any more operations, so I defer to you.
Okay. So is this a back and forth? I go, you go mechanism where you declare an operation and then I declare an operation, or is it you declare all your operations and then the U.S. the Allied player gets to go?
The NLF player, after each operation, decides who the operating player is for the next one.
Okay.
So let's say I had 10 units.
Okay.
I could do 10 strategic move operations in a row because I would do one.
Right.
And then I could say, I'm doing another, I'm doing another, I'm doing another, right? And do them. And then unless I decide to let you operate. Or I'm forced to because I don't have anyone else who can operate.
Okay.
The turn ends when I decline, when this NLF player declines a second time.
Okay. Okay.
So if this was like a big scenario, right? I could go and go, and then I could reach a point where I'm like, I'm done doing what I wanted to do. I'll let the U.S. do stuff, and then you would do an operation, and after that operation, I could immediately say, all right, I'm going to take the next stop. Okay.
Okay.
Right, and I could do that again 5 times. Okay. Okay. Right, and then, but if I decline, I say I don't want to operate. And then you can operate, and then it comes back to me, and I say, I don't want to operate, and you could operate. If both of us decline, if I decline twice, which means I declined, you decline, and then I decline again, it's over.
Okay. Okay. So in that case,
actually, I stated that wrong. If I decline and then you decline, we're done. So the U.S. player, right?
That makes complete sense.
Right, could end the whole thing. So that's really how this game writ large gets across the asymmetry of the conflict. And you notice just that simple structure. I'm glad we walked the dog on it in the first one we played. Really shows you how. So the U.S. has this amazing advantage in terms of I can do strategic movement before we get to that operations phase. Right? So I could move half the units in the freaking country to the other side of the country. You know what I mean? Do massive movements, right? And I can do naval movement. And I can do these security operations and clear the road if the NLF, has decided he wants to stay on a road for some reason, which isn't good NLF best practices, I might add. Yeah, all that stuff. Do it all, and then you're like, I'm done. And then, so then we get into doing operations, and the NLF has the initiative there. And as you'll see when we do tactical stuff, which you're going to do in a second, like by doing an actual op, the NLF has some advantages as well. So, any case,
all right,
I am here. Okay.
So we'll declare an operation. Right. Now that has to be a stack, right? Or
no, that was just for that security operation, which is weird.
Oh, okay.
You can add one, or you can add as many units as you want to this operation. So
Okay.
let's go. So let's go down and look at those flowcharts again.
Okay.
And so clear and secure real quick. Let me get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Where it says search destroy / clear and secure.
Right.
There's some breakoffs in there, but the bottom line with the clear and secure is the U.S. gets -2 to its pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but at the end of the op, their units can go on hold or patrol at the end of the operation. Okay? All right. That doesn't do you much good in this operation.
No.
Because that's setting up for later. Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So and you notice they share the same flow chart because they're very much the same with just minor variations. All right. So the first thing you do is designate the units.
All right. It's everybody.
So you're gonna So go through net. Right. Exactly. Boom. Everybody's active. Okay. And then you designate. When you do that, is it a U.S. search and destroy?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If Rangers were available, you could roll for them. We'll get to that another day. Okay? But they're not available. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter. That's why it says yes, roll for Rangers, and then boom. All right. So if it was my search and destroy, we go through these steps. So you select the target hex. So which
is the text 5119.
Right. The easiest way to do this is I thought there was a button for the target hex, but there is not. So you just go up to that target hex. And this is something you want to do. Ops markers, target hex. Right, exactly. Okay. That's the target hex. Okay. Because you can't enter an enemy hex unless it's a target hex and you're an operating unit. Okay.
Okay.
So then you declare support and free fire. You can't declare free fire per the scenario rules, so you can declare support.
All right. So supporting are going to be that 155 battery. The cruiser.
They're activated for the ops. So you don't have to declare them. They're units. Okay. The cruiser, yes, you want to declare them.
Okay.
All right. And any air mobile if you want to use it.
Okay. All right. So we will. No, very good. Okay. So yeah, we'll use the air. There's no reason not to use the air. So we'll put in 4 air.
All right, so I will invert what I just did. I'll give you a replacement point back, too. Forgot to reset that. Boom. So you got 4 air points.
Mm-hmm.
You can also assign that you've got 1 air mobile point.
Okay, so what does that represent?
That represents using, for the units so in the game, right, there are some units that are what we call inherently air mobile. They're air mobile units.
Okay.
Okay? By their nature, they have what I'm about to describe to you and can do all these things. Okay. Mm-hmm. However, now for any active units, and that's why that does my what seemed to be pedantic distinction between support and units here matters. Any of those ground units that you see there, you can air mobilize. It means they move differently. So let's I can't move your units. So let's take the like one of those marine units, right?
Okay.
The way it works is they can move through the air with the greatest of ease at half a movement point per hex. But they still have to pay ZOC and ZOC costs, be it patrol or normal ZOC costs normally.
Okay.
And there are costs to landing, increased costs to landing adjacent or in a hex with an enemy unit.
Okay.
Okay? So that's what it does for the infantry. Okay? Mm-hmm. It does the same thing for the artillery, but it also lets the artillery. So notice those are both your headquarters unit and that artillery unit have no pursuit values.
Right.
Right. They, however, and so that means if you got a pursuit bonus, they can't pursue. They can't move. Once they've moved initially in this operation, they're done.
Okay.
However, someone who's air mobilized can do pursuit movement.
Okay. Oh, okay. So there may be a reason then to use air mobile. even though, at least for the HQ, well, the HQ's got 0 combat strength, though.
Remember pursuit. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Remember. So here's the deal.
Uh-huh.
Let's say you move that guy to the south adjacent to me.
Right.
You used him this turn, right? And I retreat, and I'm able to get out of his range.
Uh-huh.
You can't move no more.
Okay.
And these combats are going to be multi-round.
Right. Okay.
So I mean, I'm just pointing out the options for you. There are many. Any one of those ideas that I just laid out is good, right?
Okay.
Even something as simple, because you're going to pursue later, and that guy's going to be air mobile for the whole op, whoever you choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be able to air mobilely move the entire operation.
All right. So in that case, I'm going to air mobilize. Presumably, those are these transport points that I have.
Right.
The HQ
looks like a helicopter.
Yeah.
All right. So you're going to do that, and it says, if you look, there's a function that says toggle air mobile.
Yep.
That's it.
Puts the little helicopter icon on it, which is awesome.
Right. So that's that. You've spent your support, which is everything, and you've air mobilized the guy. All your support's been spent.
Right.
So now we go on this thing that was your support free fire.
Mm-hmm.
Now you do movement one by one.
Okay.
And I then can react. Now, units, however, in a target hex don't get reaction movement.
Ah, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So if these guys were like this, and you were moving to the target, and let's say you moved a guy to where it physically says Chulai 5018 or whatever, right? And you ended your movement there, this guy could, do a reaction movement.
Okay.
But units and target hexes can't do reaction.
Okay.
So all right, so go ahead.
So let's do the Marines first, I guess. Is there a 1 hex minimum move?
No, you don't even have to move.
Oh, so I'm not moving into the target hex?
You could if you want, but you can also attack from adjacent.
Is there a difference in the end result?
There can be, because I'm going to get a chance to alert away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so your being in the hex is going to give you a greater chance of me not being able to just end the search and destroy operation early.
All right. So we're going to then take our Marines here, and we're going to move that Marine battalion into the target hex.
Okay.
All right. And now you're not getting a reaction because all your stuff's in the target hex. So correct. I will then move to the next unit, which would be the other Marine battalion, which is going to move in for what looks like 2 points. One for the hex and then one for the Zoc.
Yes.
Okay. And then we'll move the artillery in, I suppose.
It actually only costs you the Zoc to enter the hex, by the way. It's extra to move out of the hex. Everything's about moving out of something.
Right.
So you're basically
the hex I'm starting in is a Zoc.
Right. So all those guys basically spent 1 movement point. Everybody you just did spent 1 movement point.
Okay.
And then 1 for the Zoc, so 2.
Right. Okay.
And then and then that artillery unit's on the road. So he uses, if we look at road, he uses a mech cost, which is half. So he spent 1.5.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, lottie-dottie, everybody moved in there.
All right.
Right.
And then we'll take this guy, the HQ.
Right.
Which will go 1/2, and then another 1/2 plus 1.
Right.
So we're at 2 points for him.
Okay.
Right.
So more than that. Back him off, and I'll count off the costs. And even I, who played this for a long time, sometimes get this a little wrong, right?
Okay.
So yes, it costs half.
Okay.
Right. And then it costs you 1/2 again to get into the 1.5 to get in that hex. So that's 2, right? And then it costs you 1 to land normally. And I haven't played this in so long. I just need to refresh myself, because landing in that target hex costs, like, I believe, 2 more movement points.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
Like what? Because the cost you're spending any hex, it's just one to land. So if you were just landing in an empty hex with no enemy, all right, it would just cost you one, and it might. And I want to look up and see how much extra it costs you. So let me go to Air Mobile and the rules. I believe it's 8. Yep.
Vorpal yeah, this is a program called Vassal that we're using. ID Jester's got an introductory video on Vassal, so check out his channel for that. I have one too, but his is more up to date and more thorough.
So the cost to land is 1 if the hex contains no enemy unit or Zoc.
Okay.
2 if the hex is not enemy occupied and only in the Zoc of non-patrolling enemy units. 3 if the hex is enemy occupied or in a patrolling enemy unit's Zoc. So it costs 3. So what you did was you moved half, right? And then 2, and then it cost you 3 to land, which you can do.
Total.
Right, cost you 5. However, I will tell you, this will make this a hot LZ. But that's okay. Don't worry about it.
We'll see what that does.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I think we now have everybody in the hex who is going to be in the hex.
Right. So now we go back to the flowchart. And we go back to the flowchart and we say, okay, offensive interdiction is next.
Okay. We're not doing that.
You don't want to do any interdiction.
No.
Okay. So now what we do is, are there VC defenders? Yes. Alert roll.
Okay.
So what happens is, look up the alert roll. I roll a d6 and add the value of the inherent foot movement value of the terrain. Okay? And that's how many hexes I get to move. Now in this scenario, stupidly, I think it's an error. I will look at it. It says the movement point allowances of the VC units for all purposes, movement, alert, reaction, retreat, pursuit, are reduced by 2. I don't understand how that applies to the alert roll when you see how the mechanism works. Okay? So I think that shouldn't be used. So I roll a d6 and we see what happens. So here's the alert roll. And there's actually a function for this. If you click on the target hex, right? There's an alert roll option. I'm going to do it. 6. That's a fantastic alert roll.
Okay.
All right. That means 7. I get 7 movement points to use here.
Okay.
I'm going to take the scenario, though, at its face value and apply the -2. So that gives me 4 movement points.
Okay.
Okay. So I need to now exit your hex. So it's going to cost me 3 to go there. And I don't have a 4th movement point to spend because I'm in your Zoc. Okay? Yeah, right? It would cost me 2 and plus a river to not be adjacent to you. If based on that alert roll, I ended up not adjacent to you, operation ends.
Okay.
All right? Yeah, so you can see the dynamic there. The U.S. puts all this stuff into trying to glue the VC, and this is only for the NLF. If there were NVA there, they don't count, So I would do the roll, and it would just be for the VC units.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying? All right. So, however, at this, it's a 4 roll. So -2, that's actually 5. That's actually 5 movement points. Okay. So I still don't think I'm going to be able to get away. So what I'm going to do instead from this, so that's 2. We're going to go north. No, I can't leave Quang Nai province, which is what I'd like to do, and go into that jungle. My instincts are kicking in. So I'm stuck in this hex. What the heck? Where the heck am I going to get? So I've got 5. So that's 2.
So scenario says you're -2 movement, right?
Right.
Okay.
But I rolled a 6.
Right. Plus
we add the 1 for the cultivated, so that's 7.
Gotcha.
-2 turns into 5.
Turns into 5. Gotcha.
So it cost me 3 to go there. Do I want to do
Wardrobe
that?
slash itinerant hobbyist, thanks for coming by.
But I don't think I'm going to do that. What I'm going to do is go, and you're on patrol, and I'm just showing the options to people. So I could go here in the grassland, right? Once again, for
Right.
3. If you weren't on patrol, I could then go 5 if it was just a Zoc there,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be out of range of most of the artillery and 2 of the ground units.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I can't do that because you're on patrol. So if I went there, I would be 2. They would be 3 movement points to go there, and then it cost me. Well, wait a second. Yeah, 2 for your Zoc and 1 for the terrain. So it would cost me a movement point I don't have to go to the Melee Hex. So
Okay.
this is right. You understand? So it shows you the options here. So in this scenario, the best place for me to go is hither because it gets me further away from towards the terrain, which will have an effect later. So that what we walked through is why you might want to do interdiction sometimes, because that interdiction number is extra minuses, be it 1 or 2, from that alert roll.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. So in this scenario, though, you're good. The VC are in a bad spot. I've got Nick Carp's -2,
Mm-hmm.
for the scenario. So here we are. So now we go back to the flow chart.
Back up. Wardrobe. I'll get to the prospects of a reprint a little later because I've got things to say about. There's things I know about.
Ain't gonna happen.
That's the short version of this. It seems very unlikely is the short version of the story at the present time.
Designer doesn't own the rights. Hasbro does. That's what it comes down. Nobody can find the documentation. Any documentation.
That's what.
Says
Well,
that,
I guess we can. I've actually talked to John and Bill about this, and they have approached Nick about doing a reprint of this game. And the problem is that the documentation showing that they believe that Nick holds the rights to it, but they do not have the correct documentation to demonstrate that.
and nobody wants to get sued by Hasbro.
Yeah, nobody wants to get sued by Hasbro, and I think if they don't have a clean path to do it, then I think it will not be the kind of reprint that you're talking about, where it's basically a straight reprint with much nicer graphics. Obviously, they'd have to redo all the graphics anyway, but
right. To use an example, like Mark Herman's Pacific War, he has documentation.
Mark kept the paperwork.
Right, from Avalon Hill at that time that says you keep the rights to this moving forward. It's just that simple. So it's like looking for your tax return from 1986.
Right, 1984 in this case.
Right. You got it? I can't find it. All right, well, you still get sued. Anyway, all right, so now we go down, see any operating units in target hex, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, and the other thing is I take my hat with me, the target, okay? So the target follows both these units.
Okay.
So if they split up, by the way, which is another viable option, but I don't want to do in this turn. I'm happy keeping them both in 1 hex for you. There would be 2 units with 2 target hexes.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I'm trying to keep it somewhat simple. All right. So any operating units in target hex. No. So you don't have any units that are in there. You follow what I'm saying? So you don't have to attack if you don't want to at this time. So it says, does operating player wish to attack? Your answer is yes, right?
Yes.
And we get to the bottom. If we go to no, begin operation. So you could be like, the operation that you had in mind could have changed, right? And you're only forced to attack. That's another thing about moving into the hex. If you got guys stuck in the target hex.
Okay.
So it gives the attacker an opportunity to bail. Anyway, so now we go determine modifiers to combat die roll, which in game language means this is when we flip these guys to their other side. All right.
Okay.
So hide reveal. Now in this scenario, there's no mystery, but you can see all the permutations of not knowing what you're attacking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If there were, for example, more than 2 VC units in the scenario.
Right. And the guys played, what do you call it? 3-card Monty with some units, or you just don't know because it's not a fixed scenario with just 2 units, one regiment. You don't know what you're attacking. You know, right? So all right, until this very moment.
Right.
So now I flip. You're attacking a political section he automatically is going to die because he's being attacked, or he's a dummy. And you are attacking with everything that you have in range.
Oh yeah.
So you've got all your stuff. So we're now back to, you've got 8.5, which is your total divided by 2. That's your firepower total. Okay?
8.
And you added
5.
Right, because you got 17 divided by 2, 8.5.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Because we did for the last, right? 10. Right. No, you've got more than that. I'm sorry. You've got 8.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. So there's actually 6 plus 17 plus 8.
So I've got you at 10 for the air and the cruiser. I've got you at 25.
All right, so let me just add it up then. All right, so we have 4 air and 6 for the cruiser. That's 10. Okay.
Right.
We have the barrage value or support value of the HQ plus the support value of the artillery, which is another 15. So that's 25.
Right.
Okay, so that's the support value, and then there's 6 ground combat factors.
Right. Now, you can only take... So first of all, we have what you have. So 25 divided by 2 is 12.5.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, and then the maximum you can have added to is 3 times your ground combat value, right?
Okay.
So that doesn't apply, or we don't have to worry about it. But if, let's say you had 25, right? It would mean you could only add in 18. You'd be wasting.
Right.
You know what I mean, right? Okay, 7 of that support in this operation. But that's not the case. You've got 12.5 plus the 6 is 18.5, and you are attacking 8. Now, I'm going to make a recommendation to you. You want that 2-to-1, okay?
Sure.
But you can choose to attack with less ground than what you got there. I would attack with 4, okay? Use 12 of that support rather than 12.5 and attack me with a clean 16 because it's going to reduce your ground profile. So let's look at that combat. Let's look at that combat chart, right?
I can't get to 3 to 1. Yeah.
Right. So let's look at that ground combat chart. Right now, if you attack me with 4 ground plus my 2 support, you'd be on the 4 to 6.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the 4 to 7.5.
Right.
Because with 4 ground plus my 2 is 6. If you attack me with maximum ground strength, you would be 6 plus 2 is 8, which would bump you up to 8 to 13.5. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. Right. But if you, in fact, you could attack me with 5, which would let you use all your firepower. Okay, that's your sweet spot number, and then so you'll be on the 4 to 7 when we do this, and I'm 6 plus your 12.5, which it's the 14 to 21.5. There's not a lot of variation going on there. So okay. So that's the attack that's going to happen. All right. So which is the next step in the
so let's pull the battle board back up.
Right. And I'll walk you through it and let you program it this time. So let me do. I always like to make sure like I hit end operate because it does little things that carry over which are good, but like this is a brand new game, brand new op, we want to do it. So you want attacker strength, you want to click 4 to 7.5.
Okay. And then I want to see the log here. So, okay, gotcha. All right. And then defender strength. So you have 6 plus my 12.5, or my 12, which...
No, 12.5, because you got 5 strength, that you're fine. You could use it all. So yeah, but it's 14 to 21.5 is my column. So you hit that for the defender.
The combat odds will be 2 to 1.
It didn't take, so you got to click it again.
Interesting.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, that's why I wanted to watch the log.
Right. Then, so the combat odds you've got are 2 to 1. All right. So that gives you an odds DRM of 2. And notice there's also 3 to 2, which gives you a +1, right?
Right.
And for terrain modification, you want to click on that cultivated grass-looking hex with no right. That's it. And there's no pursuit
because it's the first round.
Correct.
Okay.
And what you want to do is click and I always ask myself when I haven't played Vietnam this game in like a year, let me look up Hot LZ real quick before you click anything else there. And okay. Since the combat so it says specifically if a unit moving by air is forced into an incidental attack, which we haven't done yet, or ends its movement in a target hex, its casualties, ends its movement is the key phrase. So it's not where we're doing the combat, it's ended your movement, right? The ensuing battle, casualties in the ensuing battle will be higher. When losses are calculated after the attack, the combat strengths of units which move by air into the target hex in the current round are doubled. So he doesn't have a combat strength, so that doesn't matter, okay? But the asterisk result will become applicable, okay?
Okay.
Because hot LZ. So now you want to click air.
Okay, so click air. Which we got.
Click air mobile.
Okay. Okay.
Click hot LZ.
Okay.
And click round 1.
Okay.
Okay. Now click roll and resolve.
Okay. Well, that's exactly what I wanted to see.
Right. That's a good result. So you rolled a modified 3. All right. So I take 2 losses, but we lose an air point. Okay. So this is in the game. This is right.
Okay. Okay.
It's implemented from what's available. I'm just going to do it like we're playing a real game. Okay. And from your overall total.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So aircraft got shot down. Boom. All right. So that reduces your air, and you didn't end up. Let's see if it. Just want to double check. So you rolled a 2. And for some reason, what was your net roll? A 3?
Net.
Yeah. Yep. So you took the air into account. Great. Sometimes you want to check that stuff because if you're using this combat board, if you don't use it, you know what I mean. If you don't click something,
right.
Yeah,
that's why I mean, that's a vassal thing. Sometimes the click doesn't take, and you got to click it again. Right. In this case, however, it is actually putting every click result in the log. So as long as you watch it as you click stuff before you push go, you should be cool.
Absolutely. I see no reason not to use the combat thing, this combat resolution chart in the vassal module for any reason. All right, so that's cool. So I took 2 losses. You lost an air point. All right, so let me take 2 replacement points. 1, 2. There we go. I'm down to. I only have 2 left.
Okay.
Now we go back to the flow chart. Flow chart. All right, boom. All right, so you have no pursuit bonus from that combat. All right, so
from
you
the
see that
combat roll.
Right. We applied casualties. Okay, then we do retreat.
Okay.
All right, so now I do retreat. This is where we are gonna have a little bit of fun. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is clone this because it's splitsies time. Oh, no, that's right. The political section's already dead. That is a tactic to do if there was like a battalion there, right? You break up. So you follow what I'm saying? And you'd have 2 target hexes. But what I'm going to do is I'm in your Zoc, so this is going to cost me... $3 to move here. Okay? Right. And that is where I'm going to stay with the target hex on top of me. At this time, by the way, notice I'm going to hide him again because that's what the VC player does, right? It makes for that whole shell game stuff, right? Now that the combat's over. So we'll get rid of this alert marker. Boop. And you can now do pursuit for another round of combat.
Okay.
So your Marines have an organic pursuit rating.
Yes.
That guy who's air mobilized does not. Okay, so he would be the only artillery platform right now that could pursue.
Okay, so I'm actually going to move them, correct?
Right.
Okay, so we'll move.
That costs you 1.
I don't need to move any farther unless... So if I move into the target hex again, are you going to get another alert roll?
No.
Okay, no. So that is completely over with.
Right.
All right, so actually, let's do it one at a time.
So if you look at that flow chart, right, you're going to do pursuit, right? And if the operation is clear and secure, and then you notice it says pursuit, and it says remove interdiction markers. You do that last because the interdiction would carry through like my retreat and stuff, right?
Okay.
And it would also impact you if you were like pursuing, and going through an area where it was. And then the flow chart takes us back up to that thing. But after the alert roll, hey, are there any target units in adjacent hexes or hexes occupied by operating units?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and we go through the whole process again.
Okay.
All right, so I'm there.
All right, so I'm going to move this Marine battalion, this 1 hex for 1.
Right.
And then I get his full movement?
No. You get his organic pursuit plus any result from the combat. The result from the combat was 0,
okay,
so he
gotcha.
can move 3 points.
Okay, so to move into the new target hex would be 2-3, correct?
No, because it's mountain terrain.
Oh.
Right.
Even though it's along a road. Oh, so we are ignoring the roads for that purpose.
That's not a road. That's a provincial boundary.
Oh,
that white
okay.
thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, I guess we're staying here then. All right.
Right.
Mountain terrain, just so I know, is 3 for foot. And 6 for mech. Okay, so it looks like we're going there, and we'll have to be satisfied with that. So that unit is done for the moment. And then we'll move this guy, again, 1. And then we said that the air mobile could pursue.
Right.
How many points does he have to work or does he not actually have any points to do that with because there wasn't a pursuit result carryover from the combat result?
That, sir, is the answer.
Okay, so he's stuck where he is too.
Right.
And he doesn't have it. So the way I see it, I can still support with the artillery because they have a 1 hex range or over 1 hex range.
Right.
But
and you've
not
got
with the HQ.
Right. And you've got 3 air, but I'm out of range of the cruiser.
Correct. All right. So that in that case, all right. I guess let's go back to the flowchart. Where are we on the flowchart?
So if there were interdiction markers, we would have removed them.
Okay.
So we go, follow that line. And are there any target units in adjacent hexes or hexes occupied by enemy units? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So then the next step is
determine
offensive interdiction, defensive interdiction. Do you want to do any of that?
No, I don't have the points. So
okay.
No. Same reason I didn't the first time, actually.
Right.
Do
you want to? Right. Obviously, you want to attack, right? Even though you're not in the hex, so yes.
Right.
Okay. Now, determine modifiers to combat roll. So you've got 6 ground to play with.
Right.
And you've got 7 artillery. 5.
Oh, it is 7.
Right.
Yeah. 7 plus 3 is 10. So divided by 2 is 5.
Right.
Okay. So, in that case, you still have.
I've got 8.
Okay, so you're still at the same number. So we want to position ourselves to use. We're going to do the same thing we did last time. We're going to use 5.
Okay.
Ground factors plus your 2 support to give us 7.
Right. So you're attacking with 10. Okay.
Correct.
So 10 attacking 8 would be a 1-to-1.
Right.
That's the first thing we're doing here, right? So that would be
fair enough.
You could conceivably attack with an 11, but it doesn't make any difference. That like you might want to take more casualty. You got the replacement points, right?
Right.
But you'd only want it if it would give you that +1 for a 3-to-2.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Not getting it.
Exactly.
Right. Right.
So why
So
eat the
right.
potential losses?
Right. So let's pull up the combat board. So we're going to, first thing you want to do here is hit that button at the bottom that says new round reset.
Okay. New round reset.
Okay.
All right.
So now we go to attack. The attacker's strength once again is 4 to 7.5.
Right. Okay. And then the defender is going to be 6 plus my 5 or 11.
Right.
Which
So
will
I'm on
put
the
you at 8 to 13.5.
Right.
Okay.
It's a 1-to-1.
1-to-1 for combat odds. We are
Now,
in
mountain.
Mountain. Okay, that's going to be gross.
Right.
All right.
And now you also get, because you moved 1 hex, so you get a +2 pursuit mod. So any movement points you don't spend is a pursuit mod. So click the 2.
Okay.
Right. So you see it adds to the next round's combat, right? And now don't bother clicking air. Okay? Because you can only take a maximum of 1 air or air mobile loss per operation. So you don't need to click that anymore. It already happened.
Okay.
Okay? But click air mobile because they're still involved in the op. You dig me? Even though they're not attacking, right, they're in the op. And it's not a hot LZ and it's not round 1.
Okay.
So, all right, roll and resolve. Okay. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Okay. So you take a loss.
Okay, so I will chug down a replacement. I figured eventually I would roll something other than a 1.
Right. This is going to... and I take 1 replacement. I'm getting low. You might win this thing. Because all you have to do is make me break down. Like, not be a regiment anymore. Okay. And you'll force me to do that by exhausting my replacement point, essentially. Okay? So now, remember, the pursuit result was a 1. So one of the things I love about this target hex, right? So why? Place pursuit mod. Pursuit mod. Increase. Reminds everybody that that's the pursuit mod from this operation. You dig me? All right. So now I'm going to retreat. And I'm at -2, so I've got 4 movement points. So... my options are limited. So I want to run away. And what I'd love to do is run away so far away that you can't still attack me. Now, if we look at your pursuit result of 1, it means that those Marine, your guys in the helicopters can pursue, but basically they can land in an unoccupied hex. So they would go like this. They you know what I mean? They could land in that cultivated hex or where the Marines are right now. Now, that's significant in these ongoing operations. You know, you're moving that support up because remember, the one guy you got, he can't. You know, the 155 battery,
right?
He can't move anymore. You know, and so what I'm about to do is basically make your life really hard, and I'm going to retreat here. Okay. So I'm going to stay in the mountains and keep the terrain.
Okay.
And keep the target on me. And now I'm out of range of all your artillery. And now you can do your pursuit movement. So you've got a +1.
Okay, which gives me 4.
Everybody, right.
Okay. So we're going to, and it's going to cost me 3 to enter that.
Right. Now it's always good to look at your movement options to keep high pursuit results because in order to hurt me, this is going to be a tough combat for you, right? You want to keep that pursuit value. So you could have gone due south for 1, right? But then once you cross that river into the cultivated to stay adjacent, that's going to be 3.
3 again, yeah.
Right.
And you're still, it doesn't change your terrain, so.
Right. So tomato, it gives you a +1 from that hex, right? Now, because we never know what's going to happen, so you probably want to move that headquarters closer to me. Like, land it in an adjacent hex.
Okay, so he has 1. So...
Right, and it costs 1 to just land. Even not in a Zoc or anything.
Okay,
you follow it,
sure.
Right. So he's not going to participate, but looking at the future, you're closer, right? You know, it's just a little bit closer. Okay. So
and then the artillery is, because he doesn't have an organic pursuit value and he's not air mobilized.
right.
He cannot pursue. He flatly cannot pursue, correct?
Correct.
All right. And the only reason he was able to participate last time is because even not pursuing, he was still in range.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right.
Gotcha. All right. So here we sit, and you've spent for both those units. And here's a little extra spice here, right? So let's say these guys had attacked from different hexes before, and one guy had a +2 and one guy had a +1.
Right.
Left over. If you don't attack with the lower value, you get the higher pursuit number that you would have. Which doesn't matter here. Right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter here, but it could. All right. So we had 1 point left over from the pursuit.
Right. Correct. Which is why I'm leaving this pursuit here at 1 now, right? So that's your modifier to attack. We both know that.
Okay.
Right.
So it looks like we have no support anymore, though. Correct?
You just have the air.
Okay. So that's still okay. That's will make a difference actually. All right. So we're going to be attacking with 6 + 3 for a total of 10. Actually, it's 6 + 1.5 for a total of 7.5.
That's not good. Now we're in 1 to 2 territory.
Yeah, well, it is. You
don't have a choice, right? You know, Kobayashi Maru.
Well, it's 2 to 3. Actually, there is a 2 to 3.
Right, 2 to 3.
So that's something, but still.
So first thing, go to the bottom and click New Round Reset.
Gotcha. All right.
All right. Now, attacker strength.
I'm still going to be in the 4 to 7.5.
You're going to be in the 8 because because if you attack with just 5, you want to crunch the numbers on this.
Okay, so you have a total of 8. Okay, so I need to have, and I'm at 7.5. But if I attack with 6.5, then I'm still 2 to 3.
Right. So that's what you want to do.
Well, actually, 7.5. I'd be at 4 at 7.5. I'd be at 7.5. So I can just attack with all of it.
Well, if you attack with just 5, it would keep you lower, right? And you would have 6.5. And 6.5, 0.5 divided by 8, because you've only got 1.5 support, absolutely keeps you in 2 to 3 land. Okay. So your instincts were correct. Attack with 5, right? At 6.5, with 1.5 air, because we're in the right, and you can see the narrative of the combat developing. The VC are moving inland, and they're just out of range of these artillery platforms, and the air that's left is trying to support this thing.
Right.
So 4 to 7.5, and I am in the 4 to 7.5 as well now. 6 plus 1.5.
Why are you at 1.5 now?
Because all you've got is the air. So my ground.
Oh, right. Yep. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So very good. All right. All right.
Combat odds 2 to 3.
Combat odds is 2 to 3. And once again, I had to click it. And once again, we're in the mountains.
Right.
So that's no good. And then for pursuit mod, we should have a 1 left over.
Right.
Okay. And then I'm not clicking air. I guess I'm not clicking air.
Just air mobile.
Just air mobile, because he's still theoretically in the operation.
Correct.
And then that's it.
Right? Yeah, okay. I saw that coming. Okay. So right. Now we've got
So we have 1 defender loss, 2 attacker losses, which I unfortunately fortunately can still afford to eat.
Yes. And I can eat a replacement point, right? Okay, and I had 1 to eat, and we had a net pursuit result of negatory 1, which I've marked up there. All right. So now once again, it is retreat timesies, and I think my only option is to continue to move inland into Quang Ngai province in the mountains. Take my little hat with me. And I would normally hide the guy now, but we all know what's happening. It doesn't matter. So pursuit -1, and that's going to end the op because
Well, I don't have
you've
the
got a
points to
-1.
move
Right.
either 1 hex of mountains or
Or 2
2
hexes of
hexes
hill.
of hills. I don't have the points to do that.
Right. Right. And even then, if you were able to make the attack, it would be really dicey, like the last one was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even if you force me to break up, you might lose a unit because you don't have any replacement points left.
I have 1 replacement point left, I believe.
Right. Right.
Is
So
that
if you
correct?
took
Yeah.
right, so if you took the result you did last turn as
Yeah.
an example, right, a guy would die and the VC would win the scenario.
Yeah, and in a campaign context, I probably would have let you go after the first pursuit, because after at that point, unless I have a specific reason to want to run that specific unit down, which we do for scenario purposes,
Right.
You've outrun the support, right, at that point.
Right.
And hey, you know,
Right.
we cost the VC a couple of replacement points
Right.
at that point. So in a longer, larger scenario, I would probably simply be satisfied with that.
And that would have been a decent result. The VC in that situation, right? What if you think about it, if it was a real game though, right?
Mm-hmm.
The VC probably would have gotten away on that first roll because there wouldn't have been a -2.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. Right.
But you could potentially also have had other, you know, another U.S. unit there to block potentially.
Sure,
You know, there'd
sure.
be a lot more operational
Right.
choices.
Absolutely. So, yeah, done with round 2 of the Kobayashi Maru. We're coming up at 4, so it's probably a good time to stop. But what do you think so far, Gary?
Let's just talk about generalities here.
You're the newbie.
There's quite a bit to this operations mechanic, in terms of, you know, not only controlling the operation itself, but then also doing all the steps to resolve the operation. There's quite a bit to it. The combat procedure is unconventional, but I think it's pretty reasonable for the topic and for, I think, the kind of results that it's trying to achieve. I can absolutely see how a large campaign of this would be a significant time investment. And I can also absolutely see why playing it with a vassal module would streamline things considerably. In that it manages a lot of the stuff for you that you would otherwise have to manage in a tactile way with counter. Pat, can you hear me?
Yeah, I was about to type.
No, we got. I got a internet flake out again, which has happened every so often. Like I said, I think it's going to be a DNS problem that is going to resolve itself one way or the other in the next month or so. It's happened to us, I think, 3 times, including this. I think we're back up now.
That's bullshit. You're just spilling whiskey on your goddamn.
I've done that before, actually, and it was expensive whiskey, and I would strongly prefer not to do that. On my laptop, actually, the 2 key on the numeric keypad is actually stuck because I spilled whiskey on that key.
Before you got cut off, I played the campaign game multiple times, right? Like 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
And because of playing it on Vassal and Board Game Geek, right? I met a guy when I lived in Nowheresville, Arizona, who was lived a half an hour away from me.
Right.
Big Vietnam freak. And we were raring to go, set it up. And we played for a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then we mutually made the decision, we both came to the conclusion, hey, let's just set it up on Vassal and play it.
Right.
And tore it down. Just because it was, all those reasons. It's not that we didn't enjoy each other's company or the tactile experience of moving the cardboard and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we knew we would move quicker and deeper into the game. You know what I mean? There are certain things that the physicality aspect,
Right.
the Vassal module just kicks us out, little things, right? Like cleaning up the ops complete markers,
mm-hmm.
right? Or on the NLF and I want to move and I'm looking up where is that unit? Where is that unit? Whereas here, the people watching on YouTube can't see it, but for me, the NLF counter is just there's a thing that shows me that they're hidden and I can see who they are.
Right.
As I'm moving those. So just little things like that.
Yeah. Well, it helps to have what looks like a really well-developed Vassal module, too. A way above average vassal module.
It really is, and we're just seeing like the tip of the edge with that. Like if you're playing the campaign game, like the pacification engine that this thing has is worth the price of admission.
Well,
right,
yeah, that's
right,
another point. Is there's a rather a lot to this game that we are not going to get to in this scenario because of the kind of scenario that it is. It is a scenario that is intended to teach you how the operation works. And there's a whole strategic and, over operational wing of this game that we did not get to in this session.
But as a tactical game, it actually, for this period, not just Vietnam, it works pretty well.
Yeah.
So if you took away, like pretend that these were NVA, right, and they're not hidden, you don't get the alert roll.
Right.
Operations still work the same way. So you start to get because in the campaign game especially, but in the different scenarios, the war goes through phases where the early phases you like trying to hunt down the VC and you're trying to reduce VC manpower. Big picture.
Right.
Well, later on it works. You're fighting things like the Easter Offensive.
Right,
and these same mechanics like about pursuit and where units are going. And that's one thing I think a lot of more modern combat operation systems, like operationally, don't get across. The different types of firepower, how they're effective, right? The fluidity of the battlefield depending on mobility. And the use of air mobility, not like conducting a literal air assault like in a hot LZ, which stopped after Lamson 719, but just the mobility that a side that has that capability, can engage in, and a fluidity of the modern battlefield. I think most of your modern war games fall, this system gets that across, where a lot of, shall we say, post-Korea war games feel more like you're playing World War II. Right.
Sure.
But we're playing it in 1973 with some extra equipment.
Right.
Yeah. And this gets, with the whole multiple rounds of combat, right? And pursuit. It's from a pure leaving the campaign out of it and groggy standpoint. It's a very interesting system.
I could also see very readily that if we had a situation where I had, the terrain had permitted me to pursue another couple of rounds, potentially. And I assume there's no actual maximum cap on the number of pursuit rounds other than the one that's built into the mechanic?
No, there's not. And you can also, let me do this just to show you. Someone brought it up in the chat, and then I'll speak to the preference.
I could readily have overextended myself and ended up, swinging in the wind if I continue a pursuit too long.
So if I don't want to pull them, I can't mess with your force pool. But if you take a look at like their alternate deployments, also for like the U.S. units, as well as for the NVA divisions when they come about, right? Where you can have them be like the U.S. brigades, or for the Marine Corps regiments can be fielded as a full regiment, or they can have the artillery parceled out. And I know a lot of people that have a lot of preferences. But it's funny is I think the preferences they become preferences because most people's experience with this game is playing it solo and not many plays opposed, especially in the campaign game. What I've discovered is early war with the US, I do not like splitting up the artillery amongst the battalions, because you want those platforms that are mobilized, and you want to be able to ladle out interdiction. You know what I mean? To pin those VC down. Later on with the U.S., if I'm operating independently or in a more defensive aspect, I'm doing more with the I'm not really using the U.S. as the big hammer to go after the communists. Then it becomes handy to have that artillery spread out, for defensive purposes. But different areas of the war, and it's one of the things I really love about this game that gets that across, different areas call for different things. So for instance, like if, down in the Mekong Delta, there are things called riverine points, right? And what the riverine points do is you don't get any of that hot LZ stuff. They never get destroyed, right? You don't move half a hex, but all those hexes that are like swamps and those rivers have major movement costs, right? But when you're riverined, you just move normal. It's like there's no cost. Like it's like they're all clear hexes. Right. So in those cases, though, I do like to have my artillery parceled out, right? Because
Mhm.
it gives me a, hey, I can get those guys riverined up, in an
Right.
easier way. But yeah, the game, there's a lot of depth to the game, and a lot of stuff we're not getting to. But even in these scenarios in the combat, it's an
Mhm.
interesting combat system, and there's a lot to it. And I
Yeah.
think because of what we were talking about earlier about victory games, where it was like everything was custom built to that scenario,
Yes.
it wasn't like a house style or like, here's OCS.
Yeah, thinking about that, I mean, Victor Games didn't really do a lot of. I guess they did a few series. I mean, they did the Fleet series, but those
That's
are all
it.
really separate games. And the
Right.
Ambush series, which is really Ambush and then some add-ons for Ambush,
And
and
that's it.
then Gulf
Right.
Strike and Aegean Strike. Neither of which I've ever even looked at, so I don't know how similar those were, other than
Ver-
vaguely. That's it, pretty much.
right. And it's why these games have persisted and they're considered to be like best in class, right?
Yeah.
Because they were built to fit. Like this combat system was built to fit this conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And it was built to deal with both the early war phase and when it gets conventional,
Yeah.
and slamming into each other and all that stuff in this period. Most games out there are just like, oh, here's, OCS Finland, right? And we're just retrofitting the system, onto something. It's the whole, ground up versus, and that's why, the
Yeah.
Korean War was standalone, and it's a
Yes.
brilliant game.
And it's considered by many to be the still, and it was what 86. Sounds right to me. It is still considered to be the definitive Korean War game, and I mean I'm not a big. I can't claim an enormous amount of expertise in playing war games on the Korean War. I believe I've played two, and of the two, the Joe Balkowski Korean War is by far the better simulation of that conflict.
Oh, it kicks,
So,
so I've played all of them multiple times, right? Even the ones that aren't my favorites, right? And yeah, it kicks OCS Korea's ass.
yeah, and I liked OCS Korea. I mean, but you're playing OCS in Korea.
Right.
You're not.
It's taking all the presumptions. It's why I don't, we talk about this and it comes up all the time, right? So it takes all the presumptions from Case Blue that don't work like in Beyond the Rhine, right?
Right.
And then does the same thing for Korea.
Yeah, and what you end up with is a lot of very strange game-specific rules that say that you have to advance to this specific hex or the specific line, as the North Koreans, for example, to make the game work, right? But by this turn, it's like turn 6 or something like that, where you have to advance down to that Pusan perimeter, or you take a massive penalty for the rest of the game.
Right, and Balkowski's game does air better. It does artillery, and support better.
Yeah, well, it's as we would say amongst the hipsters nowadays, it is a bespoke design for that specific topic,
right?
And not an attempt to make a general system work within that topic.
And it deals with strategic framing around the conflict.
Oh yeah,
right?
It has again a lot like, not really similar to this necessarily in any specific way, but like this, it has a tremendous political and back end built into it to to reflect things like UN commitment levels and stuff like that, and that's one reason why it's considered the definitive treatment of the subject. And honestly, the Eric Lee Smith Civil War is the same type of thing.
Right.
They're all very different games, but I think you're onto something with that statement, that it's because they were all designed to specifically handle the topic that they cover, is a big part of the reason why they're enduringly popular titles nowadays.
And that was Mark Herman for years until he's done more CDG specific, but that was his after Victory games.
Even then, though, I mean, is Mark's CDGs differ greatly in implementation.
Right.
I mean, they all take that basic mechanic and do something with it, but
right. My big point with that is his method is why this game's so good and the VG games were so good. Mm-hmm. His method was, I don't have a method. I look at the situation, I
Right.
do the research, and I develop the mechanics to fit.
Mm-hmm.
You buy the game, you learn the rules, you play it.
Yeah, and the
You know,
mechanics emerge out of the history that is being simulated.
right, right. Yeah, so that's it. So, great to have everybody here. It looks like the chat's died down a
Yeah,
little
a little
bit.
bit. Does
So,
anybody have any questions before we adjourn for the day?
is
I'll give everybody a minute or two to. I believe the chat is functional at this time, so.
it's functioning. It's just ain't nobody got any questions.
So yeah, we'll see what we're going to do moving forward. Pat and I will talk about that off stream, but I have enjoyed this, and it has been very interesting to see, and I wouldn't mind seeing more of this game. And we happen to have kind of a schedule gap at this exact time while we wait for something else to arrive, so which I have inquired about. So if nobody else has any additional questions. Thanks again, everybody, for coming in. We've had excellent attendance in this stream, as I kind of expected. It is a game that a lot of people would like to learn, and it is a game that a lot of people consider very challenging to learn because there's a lot going on here. Lead Magnet asks us, when does the campaign playthrough start? I believe I am not prepared to commit to that at this exact moment, but I won't say no. As something that I wouldn't mind necessarily doing in the future.
I've done it before, and I'll do it again.
Yeah. And I think there's a pretty good chance that you'll see some additional traffic on this topic. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming by once again. We'll be doing some additional stuff this week, but we haven't ironed out a schedule yet, so I cannot tell you specifically what will be occurring. So, but in the meantime, everybody have a great day, and we'll see you all again soon.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.